Welcome back to the course on Digital Logic and Computer Architecture. Okay. In our last class, we are discussing about instruction set and what are the function of those particular instruction and what is the characteristics of those particular function. Okay. Now, basically, if you are going to look into the instruction, basically we are going to say what is the instruction set. So, what are the instruction that we have in a machine, and what is the format of those particular instructions, because every instruction is nothing but a combination of bit pattern 0 and 1. So for our understanding, we just represent it in a combination of zeros and 1. So everything is a bit pattern of zeros and 1. Now how we are going to interpret it? So for that we have to give an appropriate format. So in last class I think we have said that very simple way you can say something like that. Okay. We can have some instruction of this particular format. Some bits are going to represent the opcode or operation code, and the remaining bit are used to give reference to the operand. We can say operand reference or address of the operand. Okay. So this is the format. So we have to be clear about it, the format of each and every instruction. Secondly, we have to clear about the tasks performed by each and every instruction. So these are the issues in a nutshell. Okay. So one issue is that how many addresses we should have in a instruction. So in last class I think we talked about 3 address format, 2 address format or single address format. Even we discussed about the 0 address format. So by looking into the advantages and disadvantages of those particular format, we may stick to one particular format, or we will say how many addresses that we are going to provide along with the operation to give the reference to the operand. So this is a kind of design decision. We have to freeze this particular decision, and accordingly we are going to design our instruction. Secondly, I have already mentioned that all instruction may not follow the same format, and it will be difficult. So we are going to use different format for different instruction depending on the requirement or depending on the nature of the instruction. Okay. And some are issues there which you have to resolve, and we said this is basically a design decision when we are going to design a processor. I talked about the operation repertoire, or maybe this is nothing but the how many operators that we are going to give, what they are going to do, and how we are going to implement. Okay. So these are the design decision, and we have to take a decision appropriately, and after that we are going to implement those particular instructions. Along with that, we have to say what are the data types that we are going to use. So already we know that we can work with integer data, we can work with floating point data. So whenever we are designing a particular instruction, say add instruction. So what kind of data design instruction is going to operate? It will be numeric data, no doubt, but whether it can work with integer or it can work with floating point numbers, and accordingly we have to design our instruction. Similarly, instruction format, already I said, now depending on the available bit pattern that we have for a particular processor, we are going to give the appropriate format to represent a particular instruction. Another issues already we have talked about, that we are having some temporary storage space inside our processor. These are called registers. So how many registers we are going to keep in a processor? Secondly, what will be the size of those processor, and what kind of information that we are going to store. So these are the issues that we are going to decide earlier before going for the designing of the processor. And secondly, when we talk about the operands, in what way we are going to provide the address of the operand. So there are several modes. We say these are the addressing modes, and we are going to we'll discuss these issues later on subsequent lectures, what are the different kind of addressing modes that we have. Now we are going to look into the issues that what kind of operands that we are going to use, or it can be used while going to do some operation on the computer, or when we are going to work with the processor. So the type of operands can be categorized into those particular categories. One is addresses. That means some of the operands may be available in our, or may be residing in the main memory. So we have to give the address in the instruction itself to bring this particular operand from the memory. So this is, you can say that this is the type of operand where the type is your address of memory location, or maybe it may happen that it may be an address of an IO devices also. So addresses can also come as an operand. Secondly, with some instruction we are going to provide a number itself on which we are going to work. So type of operands will be numbers, it may be an integer or floating point. Sometimes we are going to work with characters, string, in string manipulation. So we can work with such type of data also. So in that particular case, we are going to represent those particular character, and generally you can say that we are going to use ASCII code to represent our character, or maybe we are having other codes also. Or in some cases we are having logical data. That means bitwise we are going to work. Maybe we can say that we are going to work with flags bit. Okay, so flags is basically an independent bit. So if we are going to talk about the what are types of operand, basically we are going to have those particular operands. It may be an address, it may be data, that means number itself, or it may be a character, or it may be logical data. Now, these are some specific data types that we are going to have. When we say it is a general data, then we basically talk about this is arbitrary binary contents. Then integer, already you know that this is a single binary value. Ordinal, generally it is unsigned integer. We are going to work with BCD. You can have you can use two different ways to represent this particular BCD. One is your unpacked and second one is packed BCD. So in case of unpacked, we are going to use 1 byte to represent a BCD number. In case of packed, we can represent 2 BCD digits per byte. So near pointer, it says that offset within segment. So this is pointer, I think all of you are accustomed with that when you have done some programming, say in C language, we say we are having a pointer variable. Basically, if we say it is a pointer, basically we are going to keep address of a memory location. Basically, we are going to work with the address of a memory location. Then this type of data is known as your pointer data type. Okay, so it is near pointer means it will be nearer to that particular place. We say this is offset within a segment. We may discuss, or we may slightly give you some idea of what is segment called when we are going to discuss about the memory. Then we have bit field, byte string, and floating point. So these are the specific data types generally we use in our computer. Okay, and we work with such type of data. Now integer representation, I think already we have discussed. It is nothing but a combination of zeros and one. And when we are going to work with negative numbers, we may have to represent it. One is your sign magnitude form, and second one is your 2's complement. Okay, so this is basically whatever decimal value we are going to have corresponding binary numbers, and integers will be represented with the help of those binary numbers. And to indicate sign, we can use sign magnitude or 2's complement form. Similarly, BCD representation, binary coded decimal, that means here every decimal digit will be represented. So in case of unpacked, basically what will happen? We generally talk about the byte. Byte is nothing but your 8 bits together is known as your byte. So if I am having 8 bits, then what will happen? I can use these 8 bits to represent my BCD number. And when I am going to talk BCD, then what will happen? What are the different digits that we can represent? It is from 0 to 9. That means it will go from all 0, 0, 0, 0, 1 up to 1, 0, 0, 1. So this is 0, 1 like that up to 9. So you just need 4 digits. So in this particular case, if we are going to use all those particular 8 bits of a byte, then what will happen? The representation of 5 may come something like that. And you will find that we are not using this particular 4 bits at all, that will be always 0. So if I am going to represent the BCD digit using 1 byte, we say this is your unpacked. But in case of packed, what will happen? Now we are going to represent 2 digit in 1 byte. So this is your 1 byte or 8 bits. So we are going to use 2 digits. So in this particular case, if I am going to have, then this is basically means 35. Okay. So this is the way I can always think. So one is your unpacked and second one is packed. In case of packed, now we can put more information because we can put 2 digits in 1 byte. Real numbers, I think already in number representation we have discussed that we can represent real numbers, and for that we are having some format, and this format is basically known as your floating point format. And already we have seen in IEEE 754 format we are having single format and double format. In case of single format we are using 32 bits. Okay, these 32 bits are divided into like that. 1 bit is for sign bit, 8 bit is for bias exponent, and 32 bits is for significant or mantissa. And whatever we are storing over here, basically this is the representation. Sign, then dot, significant into 2 to the power exponent. Okay, this is the way we are going to say. But to increase our range, then what will happen? We are having double format. In case of double format, we are going to use 64 bit, and the format is like that. So sign bit, then 11 bit is for exponent, and 52 bits is for your significant or mantissa. Okay, so this is the way that we are going to represent our floating point numbers. Now, what are the type of operation that we may generally have in our computer in processors? So some of the classes of this particular operation are like that. This is your data transfer. Then we are having arithmetic operation, logical operation, some conversion operation, I/O, system control, and transfer of control. So these are the different types of operation that we have in a computer, and generally whatever instruction you are going to design, it will fall in any one of this particular category. So in case of data transfer, generally we specify what is the source, what is the destination, and the amount of data that we are going to transfer. Okay. So you may think something like that. Say you are bringing your information in a pen drive. Say you have a file in your pen drive. Now from this particular pen drive, you want to transfer it to the hard disk of the computer. That means you have to specify what is the source, then you have to specify what is the destination, and you have to say what is the amount of data that we are going to transfer. So basically these are the 3 inputs that we have to give, and accordingly the instruction is going to perform the task. That means we have some instruction which is going to perform this particular data transfer operation. Now how we are going to design it? It depends on the processor it may vary from processor to processor. So it says that one sentence may be different instruction from different movement. So this is the one way you can do. So this is a different instruction for different movement. So what are the different movement basically? One, you can say that we are having processor and memory. So we are going to transfer information from memory to the processor, or I can have the processor and say I/O devices. Okay, we are having going to transfer some information from processor to output devices, or from input device to the processor. So these are, we can say these are the different movement, and for this kind of movement, so we can design one instruction when we are going to deal with processor and memory. We can design another instruction where I am going to transfer information from processor and I/O devices. So the defined instruction we are going to design for different movement. So this is basically, if I am going to look for this particular family, IBM 370 family, in this particular architecture, basically we are using defined instruction for different movement. But what will happen? We can implement the same effect with single instruction also with different addresses. So for this what will happen? Memory is going to have one address, IO devices may have that different address. But I can use, for as an example, I can say that I am having a read instruction. So in case of read instruction, I am going to take it from some external entity to inside the processor. That external entity may be your memory or it may be IO devices. So we are going to use only one instruction. Similarly, I can design one instruction called write, where we are going to transfer information from processor to the other entities. So with the help of write instruction itself, we can write the information to memory location, or we can write it to, or we can put it into some output devices. So that's why we can have this thing also. We are going to use one instruction for this kind of data movement, okay, and with different addresses we are going to identify where we are going to transfer it, okay. So for read we are having one instruction, for write we are having another instruction. So we are having another architecture called FACS architecture. So in case of FACS, they use this particular principle. Now when you're going to design a new processor, you may freeze this particular decision also, that whether you are going to give different instruction or you are going to put a single instruction to deal with different devices, okay, input output devices and memory. So this is the way that we have to look into it, and accordingly you have to design it, okay. So this is the data transfer one. Then we are having some arithmetic operation. So basically what are the arithmetic operations generally we provide? These are basically that add, subtract, multiply, divide, like that. These are the four basic arithmetic operations we are having. It may work with sign integer or it may work with floating point number. Also some of the processor we may include the instruction like that, increment, decrement, negate, like that. So increment A means it is going to add 1 to the contents of A, or in general in C notation we write A plus plus or A minus minus. So to have this effect, we are going to have an increment operator, okay, or we may have a decrement operator. Then what will happen? Just to simply add 1, we need not to use the adder, because in case of ALU, what will happen? These are the two input, A and B. Then what will happen? You just see, if I am going to perform the operation A equal to A plus 1, okay, and I just think that you are working with 32-bit machine, okay. Then what will happen? For A also I am going to take 32-bit, and for this one also I am taking all the 32 bits. Basically I am wasting the power of this particular adder, or secondly we know that adder is going to take more time to add because it needs to take care with this propagation delay. So to perform such type of simple operation, we may perform one or give one instruction called increment A, and while implementing it, we may not use this particular adder, we may go for some other mechanism. Okay, we can look into it and accordingly we can do it. So this is the way that we can look into it. Okay, so some of the process is going to give the operation like increment, decrement, etc. When we are having some operation called shift and rotate. So already we have discussed about the registers. We know that we are having a shift register, either it is a left shift or right shift. So accordingly, since we are working with a register, so we can keep some instruction also, so that we can perform the shift and rotate operation. So this is SHR. Basically you can say this is your shift right. That means the contents of the register is shifted 1 bit towards the right side. Similarly shift left, it will be shifted to 1 bit towards the left side. So one new element will be entered, and the most significant bit will simply go out from this register, and we are not going to, depending on our requirement, you can use these things or we may discard it also. So this is your shift right and shift left. Similarly, we are having arithmetic shift right and arithmetic shift left. What is the difference over here? You just see that I am having this particular sign bit. So during shifting, what will happen? We are not disturbing this particular sign bit. We are keeping the sign bit intact, so we are just putting it here itself, and after that we are shifting it towards right or towards left. Okay, this is the way that we can see, and we are going to implement, or we may include some instructions so that it is going to perform this particular shift left or shift right on the data available on our registers. So what is the advantage when I am going to keep, say, arithmetic shift right or arithmetic shift left? I'll just give a simple example. So what is this value? 0, 1, 0, 1 in binary, it is 5. If I shift it left, if I am going to perform the shift left operation, then I am going to get what is this? This is your binary equivalent 10. Okay, similarly, if I have one, 1, 0, 0, what is this value? This is 12. If I do, this is I am doing shift left. Now if I am going to do shift right, then what I am going to get? Basically that signal bit will not come into picture. I am going to get this value. So if this is 12, then what is this? This is your 6. Okay. And in general, you can say that if I am doing a shift left operation, basically the effect, if we are going to work with a numerical value, the effect is like that. It is equivalent to multiplication by 2. And if we are doing shift right, okay, right shift operation, then it is equivalent to division by 2 actually. So because one of this particular position is basically going to represent or going to have the value of 2 to the power I. Okay, so that's why for simple multiplication like multiplied by 2 and divide by 2, instead of using the ALU or the multiplier circuit, what will happen? We can simply use this particular shifting operation. So that's why we may keep such type of simple operation also in our processor, which is going to give us better efficiency for some operation. Okay. Now we are having this particular logical operation. It is like a bitwise operation. So these are the operation that I am having: AND, OR, NOT, XOR, NAND, and NOR, all those things. So it is basically going to perform a bitwise operation. So if I am going to work with 4 bit numbers, okay, then if I am going to perform the bitwise AND, then what will be the result? Result will be your 0, 1, 0, 0. If I am going to perform bitwise OR, then what I am going to get? 0, 1, 0, 1. Okay, so such type of operation that we may have, which we call a logical operation, and logical operation is used basically to perform this bitwise logical operation. Okay. Now we are having input-output operation. Already we have mentioned that with the help of this input-output operation, we are going to transfer it from input devices to the processor, or from maybe from processor to the output devices. Or it may happen that we can transfer it to the memory to input devices or output devices and memory. So basically if you just look into it, then what will happen? You will find that this is my processor, CPU, this is my main memory, okay, and what will happen? I can have this IO module, and all these are connected through this particular system bus. Okay, this is the way I can, and these are the devices. So this is a device 1, device 2, like that's a device 1. Okay, and device we are connecting to it. Okay, so we may provide specific instruction to transfer it. Now, what are the transfer that we can have from this particular device?
So if it is an input device, I can take the information and going to put it to the processor register. Or maybe from processor register, we are going to transfer it to the output device. Or it may happen that from this particular input device, we are going to transfer the information from input device to this particular main memory. Okay. Or sometimes it may happen that from memory, we are going to put it to the output device. So these are the possible operation we are having. So we may have specific instruction to carry out those particular operation. And these are basically data movement operation. Already I said that if I am having read and write operation, then with the help of read and write operation, we can perform it. Or in some machine, what will happen? I am going to design special instruction, and we say call this is your IO read or IO write. Okay, so this is the way we can look into it. And I think in one of the machine, when we discussed about MAR and MBR, in this slide, we have seen two more register, and at that time I didn't mention is this is your IO AR and IO BR, input output address register or input output buffer register. So we may have specific register, or we may use this same MAR and MBR again to transfer the information. Okay. So these are the instructions that we have for this data movement, and in some design cases what will happen, we may generally perform this particular transfer with the help of a separate controller called DMA, direct memory access. Okay. While we are going to discuss about the input output, at that time we are going to discuss about this particular controller also, DMA, direct memory access, how it is going to work and what is the advantage of DMA, we are going to discuss all those things. So to have perform this particular input output operation, generally what will happen, we need instruction, and with the help of those instructions we are going to perform this particular data transfer operation. After that, we are having some system control operation. These are basically privileged instruction. So CPU needs to be in a specific state, and we say that this is kernel mode. Okay, we'll just give you some idea where we are going to have this particular system control. So I think most of you have worked with this particular Linux system or maybe Unix system. Okay. So when we are going to have this particular operating system, going to work with operating system, we said that generally it can work with two mode. One is your supervisor mode, or second one is say user mode. Okay. So to change this particular mode, say from supervisor to user or from user to supervisor, we should have some provision in the processor itself. So such type of instruction that we are going to keep, and we say this is our system control instruction. Okay. Because you just see that generally what will happen, someone is having root access, and we say that this is the administrator, and generally user is not having the root access. We can simply work or use this particular processor to distinguish that root user or the general user. Somehow that processor has to help us. We have to give this provision, and to carry out those tasks, set it user mode and supervisor mode, we have to execute those particular instructions. That means we have to give some instruction in the system itself. So this is one example. Second example that I talked about, interrupt rating. So what will happen with the help of interrupt, that another device can take request for the control of the processor and can use the processor to solve its purpose. So generally we can think in that particular way. Say you are executing one program, and currently we are executing program step by step. Suddenly I came to picture and I said that now I want to use the processors to solve my problem. After solving my problem, I will go out, then again you resume your operation. So this is the way we can think. So this is the interrupt. Okay. So when we are going to execute your program,
you may think that while I am going to execute my program, it is an high priority one, nobody should disturb me. So for that, in most of the processor, we are going to have some instruction called EI or DI, enable instruction, enable interrupt and disable interrupt. So what will happen? So when I feel that when I'm going to execute my program, this is an important one, it should not be disturbed by anybody else, then I'll set it as disable interrupt. Okay, I disable the interrupt. I execute my program. After completion of the instruction of my program execution, then what will happen? We enable this interrupt. That I'll execute this particular instruction. I'll add this instruction as a last instruction in my program called enable interrupt. And DI may be the very first instruction of my program. So these are the instruction, and if falls under this particular system control instruction. Okay, so depending on our requirement, we may give such type of instruction also. And generally, the system control instructions are used by your operating system. I think you have some brief idea about operating system, and always you are using it. Either it may be Windows system, or maybe Unix system, or maybe Linux system. So mainly such type of system control instruction is extensively used while you are going to design operating system. This operating system is nothing but a software. Okay. Now we are having some instructions which are known as your transfer of control. So it says that branch instruction, for example, branch to X if result is 0. Another instruction, it says skip, increment and skip if 0. Generally you keep on incrementing, or you can skip it if it is 0. Okay. Now what basically it have? We are saying that branch to some X or skip. Okay. Now what will happen? When I am going to have a program, we are going to execute the program, and we know that I am storing my program in our main memory. Okay. Now if this is the program, then what will happen? In general, I am going to execute the instruction one by one, fetching it from the memory location or from the next memory. But due to some situation, you just said that I am executing this particular instruction, say instruction I, and next instruction is your I plus 1. Okay. Now depending on some scenario, I don't want to execute this I plus 1, but I want to execute this particular portion where my instruction is say in IJ. So to have this effect, we must have provision in my processor. We have to design some instruction, and we say these are the branch instruction. Okay. Now this effect I can explain with simple example. Say if I say that if A is greater than B, then do this part of code, else do the other part. Okay. Now what I can say here, I am comparing A is greater than B. If it is true, then say I am going to perform this particular portion. If it is false, then I am going to perform the other one. Now that means what will happen? Depending on the result of A is greater than B, I have to branch or jump to this particular memory location. So that means I am transferring the control. By default, what will happen? I am incrementing the values of the program counter, and it is pointing to the next memory location and says that you fetch the instruction from next memory location. But such type of conditional instruction, what will happen? We have to fetch the next instruction from some other memory location. So for that we have to transfer the control to that particular memory location. That means how we are going to have this particular effect? That means we are going to change the contents of the program counter, because program counter is keeping track of the program execution. So these are the facilities that we should provide to execute such type of conditional instruction, and we said these are the branch instruction. Okay. Now what are the conditional instructions? Some of the example it is given like that. ISZ register 1. That means increment and skip 0. It is going to check the value of the register 1. Okay. It will increment the value of the register 1, and if it is 0, the value of the register 1 becomes 0, then it is going to skip. Okay, maybe something like that. We'll have to see exactly how, for what purpose we are going to use. This is another one, branch x-axis. That means without any condition, if this instruction comes into picture, then what will happen?
Transfer of the control will go to the memory location XXX. Okay, so this is basically unconditional branch instruction. Here we are talking about the branch to X if result is 0. So depending on some result, we are going to have a branch, but this branch is unconditional. Without any condition, we are saying that now fetch the instruction from memory location XXX. I think if you are accustomed with the C programming language, I think in C you are going to use sometimes some instruction called go to some level. Okay, so when I am going to execute this particular go to instruction, then what will happen? To perform these things, we may have such type of unconditional branch instruction in my processor, and we are going to execute it. So this is another, this thing it is saying that B and Z. Now I can interpret it like that, branch on not 0. So this is basically we are going to work with this particular Z flag, 0 flag. We are performing one arithmetic operation. If the result of this arithmetic operation is not 0, then you branch to this particular memory location. Or if it is 0, then you follow the usual program execution. So these are called branch not 0. This is another one, BP. Now I can interpret it like that, branch on positive. When you are doing some arithmetic operation in ALU, or if the result of ALU is positive, then you go to this particular memory location. That means instead of fetching the instruction from next memory location, you fetch the instruction some memory location whose address is your XXXX. Okay. So these are the transfer of control. And I think we are having in subroutine also, or maybe function. So for that also it is nothing but a transfer of instruction only. Okay. So here what will happen if I am having a program, okay, executing a program, and in most case say in C generally you write that you are having say I is equal to say n is equal to 5, then after that you are going to say write that A is equal to fact of 5 or fact of n. Okay, then what will happen? After that you are writing some function or integer fact and giving some parameter and writing this thing. So this is a function to calculate the factorial of a given number. So here I am using this particular function only. So that particular one, when I am going to execute this particular instruction, it is going to basically execute this particular factorial. So this function is basically known as subroutine. And how I am going to call this subroutine? So to use this particular facility, that using such type of function, then we should have provision inside my processor. That means I have an instruction to provide such type of facilities. Okay, and this is when I'm going to discuss about the interrupt, then we will mention that interrupt is very similar to the subroutine call. So for transfer of control, we have to design such type of instruction. Okay. Now this is a simple example. So whatever I have just now talked about that branch instruction, then you just see that from memory location 200 we are storing my program, and one by one in 2000 memory location 202 I am having this instruction subtract x minus y. So that means I am going to have x minus y operation. I am going to perform it. So this is a ALU operation. When I am going to perform this operation, so depending on the result of the operation, it is going to set or reset those particular flag bits. Okay, because values of flag bits depends on this particular operation of the ALU. So I am performing x minus y. So depending on the value, we are going to set those particular flag bit. We are having say sign bit, then 0 bit, okay, carry bit, and all those some of the flag bits are having. Now here what will happen? The next instruction in BRZ, that means Z is 0 flag, branch on 0. That means after performing x minus y, if the result is 0, then go to execute the program from the memory location 211. So whatever instruction we have in the 211, we are going to start my execution from this particular part. And if the result is not 0, then what will happen? I am going to execute those particular instruction. And in 210 memory location, what instruction we are having? Branch 202. This is an unconditional branch instruction. So this is unconditional branch instruction. When I am going to execute this particular thing, then control will automatically go to 202. How it goes? What we are doing it basically while implementing, you just see when after execution of this particular program instruction, we are going to change the value of the program counter to this 202 because program counter generally holds the address of the memory location from where we are going to fetch the instruction. Now when I am fetching the instruction from 210 memory location, at that time by default or depending on my fetch cycle, you will find that the values of the program counter become 211. That means you have to bring the next instruction from memory location 211. But after execution of this particular instructions, I am fetching it, then I am going to execute it. After execution of this particular instruction, now we are going to change our decision that we have to bring the next instruction from memory location 202. That means at that time we are going to change the value of PC to 202. And where from I am getting this 202? In the instruction itself I am getting it. So this is an operand of this particular instruction. So we are going to change program value to 202, and finally I am going to again fetch this particular same instruction. So it is some sort of loop that we are having. Like that we are coming, and after that we are having this another instruction BRE. I can say that I can interpret like that, branch on equal. So here I am giving two operand, register R1 and register R2. If the value of register R1 and R2 are equal, then you go to this or fetch the next instruction from this particular 235 memory location. Okay. So this is the way we can implement. So now you just say to implement our conditional instruction, we have to provide some branch instruction in our processor. And what are those particular instructions? Here I am saying that branch on 0, this is a conditional branch instruction. This is a branch which is your unconditional branch. This is branch on equal, which is another conditional instruction. So like that, depending on our requirement, we have to provide some of that conditional instruction in our processor. Okay. So while going to discuss about the control unit design, then we'll see how we are going to design such type of instruction. Okay. Now already I talked about subroutine call or procedure call because those are known as your my procedure. The way I am saying, say integer factorial, say int, and then I am going to write this program. And in my main program, what will happen? I am going to write a program. I can say that here I am going to write say x equal to act of, and I can write and no problem because this is a program only, and before that I can put say n equal to 5. So that means I am going to find a factorial 5. So what when I am going to execute this particular instruction, at the time I am going to call this particular subroutine. So this procedure or subroutine will reside in the main memory, but they are in some other memory location. So this is the way that we are going to execute function or going to implement function or subroutine. So now during execution, you just see what will happen in this particular case. In this particular memory location, so I am having the instruction call procedure 1. So when I execute this particular instruction, and what will happen? Now I know that I have to call this particular procedure 1, and starting address of this procedure 1 is your 4500. Then what will happen? Now basically that values of program counter will be loaded by 4500, and I am going to execute these things. Now when I am going to execute it, again I am saying that here I am calling procedure 2. So say 4600, I am calling procedure 2, and that means program counter value will be now loaded with 4800. I am executing it. So after completion of these things, it says written. Now I have to come back. So where from now I am going to start design my procedure. Now from this particular 4006 memory location, I have to keep track of this thing. So I have to keep this information somewhere so that after completion of the procedure 2, I have to come back to this particular position. So after completion of this point, I am coming back here, exiting the remaining portion. Again here I am calling procedure 2. I am coming to these things. After completion of these things, we come back to this particular point. I execute the remaining portion. After when I come to this encounter return point, then I come back to this particular point. That means 4101 memory location, and I finish the remaining portion, and this is maybe the end of the execution. So if we are going to provide such type of facilities, then what will happen? I have to provide instruction in my machine. So you have to design instruction accordingly, and you have to say what are the tasks performed by this particular instruction. So in most of the machine, we are going to have this instruction in the machine level. One is say call and return. That means procedure call, and after completion of this particular procedure, we are having the return instruction, then it is taking back to my calling program. Okay, so we must provide such type of instruction in my processor. Then only we can write our program in a modular way. For every module, we are going to do some little bit of work. Okay, so while designing our instruction set, we should provide such type of procedure call also, instruction for procedure call and return. So now say these are the different kind of instruction that we have, and while going to design our processor, we have to design those particular instruction accordingly. Now in a nutshell, you just see how we are going to visualize our computer system. So this is hardware part. So in hardware part, what we are going to do, we are going to implement the instruction set. Basically, sir, we are saying that we are having an instruction set, and our machine is going to execute the instruction for each instruction of the instruction set. That means we have to implement these things in hardware, and we are going to get our machine. So when I say about the implementation of this hardware means, you just see implementation of the processor. What we have ALU, we have some storage registers, and going to design the control unit to coordinate the whole activity. Okay, so my processor is ready, and I know what are the instructions that we have in the instruction set. Now I can use those particular instruction only. Now what is a software? These are the programs basically that we are writing to solve a particular program. Okay, I am having a problem in my hand, so I am going to write a software or write a computer program to solve this particular problem. But when I am writing this particular program, basically it consists of instruction of this particular processor only, because processor can execute those instructions. So this is basically, I can say, these are the two components that we have. Now whether I am having instruction to solve all the tasks. So when I am going to solve something by my computer, now whether my computer is going to give me all those particular instructions. So is it possible to provide all required instruction? Okay. So this is one issue. Now how we are going to start a computer? I said that now computer is, I have built a CPU, my computer is ready. Okay. So now somehow we have to give a provision to start it, and generally you say this is the booting of your machine, but how you are going to do it? So we need some basic operation to do the initialization of my processor. Okay, so in this particular case what will happen, we are going to have some programs. Okay, and we said these are the basic input output routine, and we keep it in this BIOS, basic input output system. So what will happen when I am going to start my computer, it have to run some software, run some program. Now where from I am going to get those particular program? So basically we are going to keep it in a memory system which is known as your ROM. This is basically BIOS ROM. ROM means it is read-only memory. That means we can read the contents of the memory and we can use those things, but we cannot modify it. So the basic required routine is kept in this particular BIOS ROM, and when I am going to execute it, then what will happen? When I am going to boot the system, it is going to execute those particular basic routine, input output routine that you have kept in your BIOS ROM one by one and going to make the system ready. Now again, if I come back to this particular thing, that is it possible to provide all required instructions? Say I am going to work with a computer, my requirement is versatile. Okay, whether everything can be implemented in the instruction set, in general I say no, but if you say yes, we are going to do it, then you are going to get a very complex processor which will be difficult to build. So in that particular case, what will happen? Some of the basic operation or required operation we are going to implement in software, and we said these are the service routine, and where we are going to keep it, basically we are going to integrate all those particular required basic service routine. Okay, and we said this is the operating system. So this is the OS is coming into picture. So in the basic hardware, I don't have all the instruction, but I require many more instruction. Okay, so I write small program to perform those particular operation, and I can always think that this is a instruction and I am going to execute this particular instruction. So when I am going to execute that instruction, basically we are executing a small program. So like that, in our last class I have mentioned about when I am going to add two numbers 5 into 4, I can do it by repeated addition method also. No, I can add 5 4 times. So what will happen? If I am having only adders, then I can write a small function to get the effect of the multiplication. So this is a routine, and I can keep this particular routine or software program, and whenever it is required I am going to use it. So like that, operating system is having such type of routines, not for multiplication purpose, do some other work, that taking, say I am having two operations, say in and out, just to taking the input in from input devices out to put some information into the output devices. Now with the help of this instruction, what will happen? I have to write a program to accept something from my keyboard. But everyone is going to write these things, and what will happen? It is a wastage of our effort. So we can say that everything will be integrated in one place, and we said this is the part of my operating system. Okay. So this is the way you can visualize it, and that's why I'm saying that OS can be considered as an extended machine instruction. That means you are extending the machine instruction. Okay. So whatever instruction we are having in the hardware, by combining these things, we are putting more functionality, more function which are implemented in software, and we said that we are integrating all those things in our operating system, and it is going to make our life easier when we are going to work with a computer. Okay. Now by looking into it, now currently there is two terms or two paradigm we are having, it's RISC and RISC. Now basically what is that? Complex instruction set computer. RISC is reduced instruction set computers. So I'm telling you, so today I have developed a computer, but when user use it, they feel that some more instruction is required. Then what will happen? The designers or developer tries to incorporate, give some more instruction. Okay. Like that, what will happen during the development process? We are putting more and more instruction so that people can easily use the computer. Okay. When we are going to put more and more instruction, basically it is coming down like that. We are coming to a paradigm which is known as a complex instruction set computer. Okay. Computer system become more and more complex. But later on, what will happen? People try to analyze it that I am making a very powerful machines, providing some complex instruction. But when we analyze the software developed for this particular computer, we found that very few people have used or in very few software that people have used such type of instruction. Most of the instruction that are available in our processor instruction set may not be used, or people are not using it. Okay, so after people feels that it is unnecessary to give more and more complex instruction in the processor, so people are coming to the error paradigm and they are saying that now we are trying to reduce the instruction in the instruction set, going to give primitive instruction only, and now people will develop their own routines to do some complex work. So this is coming over here, which is known as your RISC, reduced instruction set computer. So these are the two paradigms we have. But in this particular course, in specific, we are not going to talk about RISC, we are not going to talk about SIX, but we will see how we are going to design an instruction for a computer. Okay, with this, I'll stop here today. Thank you very much.